Let me tell you, Meghan Markle's decision to host a special bonus episode of her flop podcast, Confessions of a Female Founder, is going to come back to haunt her. Because Tina Knowles, known as the matriarch, the not altogether sweet mother of Beyonce Knowles, has just managed to roast the fake Duchess on her own show. She tears into the fact that Meghan Markle does not have communication with her own family. And listening to the fake Duchess simp her way through this interview, trying to get Tina Knowles on side desperately. Oh my goodness.
Going, I just picked these strawberries and it's so great. Look, I just put a little bit of sugar and some Meyer lemon. And you try to scale that up.
Oh, yeah.
And you're wanting to manage expectations, but you want to share the thing you've worked so hard on. And so for me at the moment with As Ever, it was great. We planned for a year, and then everything sells out in 45 minutes. With yes, amazing, great news.
But then what do you do then?
Then what do you do?
Yes,
and then
Tina.
you say,
Beyonce's mother just delivered the most brutal takedown of Meghan Markle ever captured on audio. And the best part? It happened on Markle's own podcast. What should have been a friendly chat between two successful women turned into a masterclass in public humiliation. Tina Knowles didn't just criticize the Duchess of Sussex. She systematically dismantled everything Markle stands for, exposing her as a wannabe entrepreneur, a terrible interviewer, and most devastatingly, a woman so consumed by bitterness that she can't maintain relationships with her own family. This wasn't just an interview gone wrong. This was a complete character assassination, delivered with surgical precision by a woman who's been in the entertainment industry longer than Markle has been alive.
You know, you guys aren't making enough stuff and we're looking for it and we can't find it. So I don't think it's such a good thing all the time to sell out.
yeah, I think that scarcity mentality at the beginning might be a hook for people, not dissimilar to a sneaker drop. Great.
Yes, exactly.
But when you're talking about products
that you need to be consistent with. Are foods that you want to provide to your family.
I don't want you to eat that jam once every 6 months.
Right.
I want that to be on your shelf
Right.
all the time. You want us to wash our hair with these products all the time. So trying to keep up with that demand, I think, is something that's really helpful for people to have that insight on no matter who you are, that part of the process as an entrepreneur is not easy, that numbers game.
So basically, Angela and Evan, what we see is Tina Knowles effectively saying, your strategy is whack, you've got no product, you were not ready, and I am here for it.
And Markle sat there, squirming in her chair, as her carefully constructed public image crumbled in real time. The American Riviera Orchard podcast was supposed to be Markle's triumphant return to media relevance. Instead, it became her most embarrassing public moment since leaving the royal family. When Tina Knowles agreed to appear as a guest, Markle probably thought she'd scored a major coup. After all, this was Beyoncé's mother, a woman with genuine business credentials and entertainment industry connections. But from the very first moments of their conversation, it was clear that Knowles wasn't there to play along with Markle's victim narrative or stroke her ego.
Fry your hair. And everyone was recommending that I should start wearing wigs. I never ended up doing it. By the way, if I was in that industry longer, I understand why you need to protect your hair in that way.
Yeah, because who wants to curl and spray and tease and, do all those things to your hair every day?
Do you see what I mean, Angela? It's so obvious. It's so obvious, despite what she tries to do, that actually she's looking down on women who wear wigs.
This wasn't going to be another softball interview where Markle could control the conversation and paint herself as a misunderstood genius. Knowles came prepared to speak her mind, and what she had to say would leave Markle reeling. The tension was palpable even in the introductions. While Markle tried to position herself as the gracious host welcoming a distinguished guest, Knowles' responses were measured, professional, and notably lacking in the fawning admiration Markle clearly expected. The battle lines were drawn before they even got to the real topics. Markle's first major misstep came when she decided to make Knowles age the centerpiece of her introduction. With all the subtlety of a sledgehammer, she gushed about how incredible it was for someone in their 70s to still be building businesses and creating products. The condescension dripped from every word as she painted Knowles as some kind of geriatric marvel for daring to work past retirement age. This wasn't admiration, It was patronizing garbage wrapped in fake praise. Markle's tone suggested she viewed older women as fragile creatures who should be applauded simply for getting out of bed, let alone running successful enterprises. The subtext was clear. Isn't it amazing that this old lady can still function in the business world? But Tina Knowles didn't get where she is by accepting condescension from anyone, least of all from a failed actress turned royal dropout. Her response was ice-cold professional courtesy, but those who know the entertainment industry could hear the steel beneath the politeness. Markle had just insulted a woman who's been building empires since before the Duchess was born. This patronizing attitude revealed everything wrong with Markle's worldview. Her assumption that success belongs to the young, her inability to recognize genuine achievement, and her desperate need to position herself as some kind of business visionary. But she was about to learn that real entrepreneurs don't appreciate being talked down to by someone whose biggest business accomplishment is selling jam jars to celebrities. Then came the moment that will haunt Markle for years to come. As she tried to spin her American Riviera orchard disaster as some kind of success story, Knowles delivered a business lesson that left the Duchess speechless. When Markle boasted about selling out her entire inventory in 45 minutes, expecting praise and admiration, Knowles dropped the hammer. "What are you going to do next?" Knowles asked with the precision of a surgeon making an incision. "That's annoying as a customer." In those few words, she exposed the fundamental flaw in Markle's entire business approach. Selling out quickly isn't success when you have no plan for restocking, no sustainable supply chain, and no real commitment to serving your customers. Knowles, who runs an actual business with real inventory and genuine customer relationships, wasn't impressed by Markle's amateur hour theatrics. She understood what Markle clearly didn't, that creating artificial scarcity might generate headlines, but it destroys customer trust and reveals a complete lack of business acumen. The devastating critique continued as Knowles explained how real businesses operate, contrasting her own sustainable approach with Markle's flash-in-the-pan publicity stunt. Every word was a masterclass in entrepreneurship, delivered to someone who clearly had never run a legitimate business operation. Markle's desperate attempts to defend her strategy only made the humiliation worse. But the business critique was just the beginning of Knowles' systematic destruction of Markle's credibility. The next blow came when it became blindingly obvious that Markle hadn't bothered to read Knowles' best-selling book before the interview. Not only was this a stunning display of unprofessionalism, but it happened live on air for everyone to hear. When Knowles mentioned a quote from her book, Markle's response was pure amateur hour. "Oh my God, I can't wait to read it." The subtext was unmistakable. She hadn't done the most basic preparation for her own podcast. This wasn't just lazy, it was disrespectful to her guest and insulting to her audience. Any legitimate interviewer would have read the book, prepared thoughtful questions, and created a meaningful conversation around the content. Instead, Markle winged it, hoping her celebrity status would carry her through. The awkward silence that followed her admission spoke volumes about her lack of preparation and professional standards. Knowles, to her credit, handled the moment with grace, but the damage was done. Here was supposed media professional Meghan Markle, demonstrating that she couldn't be bothered to do basic research for her own show. The contrast between Knowles' prepared, professional approach and Markle's winged attitude couldn't have been starker. The conversation took an even more devastating turn when Knowles began discussing her business partnership with her daughter Beyoncé. As she spoke about working directly with her children and maintaining close family relationships, the contrast with Markle's situation became impossible to ignore. Knowles described how she always makes the first move to resolve family disagreements because she refuses to waste precious time on feuds. "I don't want to waste that time," Knowles explained, emphasizing how family relationships require effort and compromise. It would be wasted time, and you can just see there in that moment. The implications were staggering. Here was a woman who understood that pride and stubbornness destroy families, speaking to someone who had systematically burned bridges with almost every family member she'd ever had. The irony was suffocating. While Knowles spoke about the importance of family unity, Markle sat there having destroyed her relationship with her father, estranged herself from most of her relatives, and allegedly contributed to Prince Harry's isolation from his own family. The contrast between Knowles' functional family dynamics and Markle's trail of destruction was stark and undeniable. Markle's silence during this portion of the interview was deafening. She couldn't defend her family relationships because there was no defense to offer. Every example Knowles gave of healthy family communication and conflict resolution highlighted Markle's failures in this fundamental area of human connection. The most psychologically revealing moment came when Knowles discussed her personal philosophy about avoiding bitterness. As she spoke about choosing to focus on positive aspects of life rather than harboring resentment, Markle's reaction was visceral and telling. The tension in her voice was unmistakable as she struggled to respond to advice that struck at the very core of her public persona. "I have fought very hard not to be bitter because I don't want to be bitter," Knowles stated with conviction. "I choose to look at the good things in my life and not harp on the bad ones." The contrast with Markle's entire post-royal existence couldn't have been more obvious. While Knowles had chosen to let go of past grievances, Markle had built her entire brand on nursing wounds and settling scores. Markle's defensive response revealed everything about her psychological state. When someone who has genuinely moved past adversity offers advice about letting go of bitterness, and your immediate reaction is defensive anger, it exposes the rot at the core of your worldview. Markle's inability to accept this wisdom showed that she's trapped in a cycle of resentment that's poisoning every aspect of her life. The moment crystallized why Markle continues her relentless attacks on the royal family and maintains feuds with her own relatives. She cannot let go, cannot move forward, and cannot build a positive future because she's too invested in being the victim of past wrongs, real or imagined. As the interview progressed, Markle's unhealthy fixation on Beyoncé became increasingly uncomfortable to witness. Her desperate attempts to find connections between herself and the superstar revealed a level of parasitic behavior that was both pathetic and concerning. When she discovered they shared similar birth months, her excitement was that of a superfan rather than a professional interviewer. "Beyoncé and I are the same age," Markle gushed, as if this meaningless coincidence somehow elevated her status or created a meaningful bond. The desperation in her voice as she tried to establish these tenuous connections was deeply unsettling. This wasn't admiration, it was obsession masquerading as professional interest. Throughout the conversation, Markle repeatedly tried to insert herself into Beyoncé's narrative, claiming similarities and connections that existed only in her own mind. Her behavior resembled that of a stalker trying to convince themselves they have a relationship with their target when none exists. The secondhand embarrassment was overwhelming. Knowles, demonstrating the protective instincts of a mother, skillfully deflected these attempts while maintaining her professional composure. But the subtext was clear. She recognized Markle's behavior for what it was and wasn't about to enable it. The one-sided nature of Markle's obsession became more apparent with each desperate attempt at connection. Perhaps the most infuriating aspect of the entire interview was Markle's pathological inability to let any conversation topic exist without making it about herself. When Knowles had a minor coughing fit due to allergies, instead of simply offering sympathy or moving on, Markle launched into an extended monologue about her own honey production and her generosity in giving it to her son's school friends. This wasn't helpfulness, it was narcissistic hijacking of someone else's moment of discomfort. Rather than focusing on her guests' needs, Markle used the opportunity to promote her beekeeping activities and paint herself as a generous benefactor to children with allergies. The self-aggrandizement was nauseating. The pattern repeated throughout the interview. Every topic became a launching pad for Markle to discuss her own experiences, achievements, or opinions. When Knowles spoke about Beyoncé wearing wigs to protect her hair, Markle immediately made it about her own hair care routine and her decision never to wear wigs, as if anyone had asked. This behavior revealed the fundamental flaw in Markle's personality, her complete inability to focus on anyone other than herself for more than a few seconds. Even when interviewing someone else for her own podcast, she couldn't resist making herself the center of attention. The lack of basic courtesy and interview skills was staggering. The most delicious moment of the entire interview came when Knowles inadvertently revealed that Markle had been excluded from the exclusive first night of Beyoncé's concert tour. As Knowles casually mentioned spending the evening with Oprah Winfrey, Tyler Perry, and Gayle King, the implications hit like a thunderbolt. Markle wasn't invited to the A-list gathering, despite her obvious desperation to be included in Beyoncé's inner circle. The shift in Markle's tone was immediate and unmistakable. Her voice became tight, with barely controlled rage, as she processed the fact that she'd been left out of the exclusive event. "Oh, I bet," she managed through gritted teeth, but the fury was audible to anyone paying attention. This wasn't just disappointment. This was the rage of someone who believed they deserved access to the highest levels of celebrity society. Markle's follow-up comments about not knowing how they juggle all of it reeked of bitter grapes. Unable to directly express her anger at being excluded, she resorted to passive-aggressive digs about the age and capabilities of those who had been invited. The subtext was clear. If she couldn't be there, then maybe they shouldn't have been able to handle it either. The revelation exposed the hollow nature of Markle's supposed friendship with Beyoncé. All her name-dropping and implied closeness meant nothing when it came to actual invitations to exclusive events. She was on the outside looking in, and everyone now knew it. By the end of the interview, Markle was in full damage control mode, desperately trying to salvage some dignity from the wreckage of her public humiliation. Her announcement about having a date night with Prince Harry wasn't casual conversation. It was calculated image management designed to convince listeners that her marriage was solid and her life was perfectly balanced. "We have a date night tonight," she announced with forced enthusiasm, as if this mundane activity was somehow newsworthy or impressive. The desperation behind the statement was palpable. After being systematically demolished by Knowles on multiple fronts, Markle was grasping for anything that might make her seem successful or enviable. The timing of this revelation was particularly telling. After having her business acumen questioned, her family relationships exposed as dysfunctional, and her professional preparation revealed as inadequate, Markle reached for the one thing she thought might still impress people: her marriage to a prince. But even this felt hollow and performative. The entire interview had become a masterclass in how not to conduct a professional conversation. Markle's attempts to control the narrative had backfired spectacularly, leaving her looking desperate, unprepared, and fundamentally out of her depth. What should have been a simple promotional opportunity had become a public relations disaster of epic proportions. This interview will be remembered as the moment Tina Knowles exposed Meghan Markle for exactly what she is: a failed entrepreneur with delusions of grandeur, a bitter woman who destroys relationships, and a narcissist who cannot function without making everything about herself. Knowles didn't need to raise her voice or resort to personal attacks. She simply spoke truth with the authority of someone who has actually achieved success through hard work and genuine talent. The contrast between these two women couldn't have been starker. On one side, a legitimate businesswoman who built something meaningful and maintained loving family relationships. On the other, a publicity-seeking opportunist whose every venture ends in failure and whose every relationship turns toxic. Markle walked into this interview thinking she could charm another celebrity into her orbit. Instead, she encountered a woman who saw right through her act and wasn't afraid to call it out. The result was the most devastating 45 minutes of audio in recent memory, a complete dismantling of everything Markle pretends to be, delivered with surgical precision by someone who actually knows what success looks like. The American Riviera Orchard podcast was supposed to rehabilitate Markle's image and establish her as a serious businesswoman. Instead, it became the perfect metaphor for everything wrong with her approach to life: poorly planned, inadequately prepared, and ultimately serving no one's interests but her own inflated ego.